The day before the joint exam, someone tampered with the water I drank. My best friend surpassed me and secured the only guaranteed admission spot. My childhood sweetheart comforted me, saying it's okay, you'll have another chance with the college entrance exam. But on the day of the exam, I was kidnapped, and my childhood sweetheart missed the exam while trying to rescue me. To repay a kindness, I married my childhood sweetheart. Years later, my best friend graduated from a prestigious university and came to my wedding looking radiant. But I accidentally overheard a conversation between my childhood sweetheart and her. Michelle, thanks to you, making her miss both exams, otherwise I'd never have been able to marry her. Michelle sneered, who told her to be the daughter of my dad's ex-wife. If I don't trample her into the mud, how could my mom outshine that old woman? Blinded by rage, I drove my car into them, leaving them all disabled, and was sentenced to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had reincarnated back to my senior year of high school. Evelyn, let me fetch water for you. You can still review 2 major problems during this break. Michelle stood before me, speaking timidly. Without waiting for me to respond, she took the empty cup from my desk. My childhood friend Joseph walked over from the last row and sat down beside me. Evelyn, Michelle is so good to you, even though she's South perpetually second place, she's willing to give up her break time to let you practice problems. The way he said it made it sound like I was taking some huge advantage of Michelle. The surrounding classmates looked over with varied expressions. Someone whispered, is Evelyn bullying the school belle? Aren't they childhood friends? I feel like the school beauty is acting so submissive around her. It's precisely because they grew up together that she's more susceptible to being manipulated. Joseph listened to these words, a flicker of amusement flashing in his eyes, yet he pretended to be angry and loudly scolded them. Shut up, Evelyn, isn't that kind of person. After silencing them, Joseph looked at me with eyes full of tenderness. Evelyn, no matter how many people misunderstand you, I'll always stand by your side. What a lunatic. I ignored Joseph, not even lifting an eyelid. It was this very day in my past life. I drank the water Michelle gave me, suffered severe dehydration, and fainted completely, missing the joint entrance exam. With her strongest competitor gone, Michelle successfully rose from perpetual second place to claim the top spot. The homeroom teacher said to me with regret, the school knows your capabilities, but institutions have their rules that cannot be altered. You were absent from the exam according to regulations. The guaranteed admission spot now belongs to Michelle, including. The teacher knew my background and how much I cared about the rewards tied to ranking first in this joint exam. Her voice trembled with reluctance. Including the privilege of 4 years of university tuition exemption, it must also be given to Michelle. 3. I'm an orphan, abandoned since childhood. It was Grandma Joseph who took me in. The Joseph family wasn't wealthy. Grandma Joseph took me in to raise me as Joseph's child bride. This way they wouldn't need to spend money on a wife for Joseph in the future. I did all the housework at Joseph's home, washing clothes, cooking meals, feeding chickens, and raising pigs. Yet I never had enough to eat or proper clothes to wear. Fortunately, 9-year compulsory education had become universal. Only when the village party secretary came to Joseph's house with the police was I able to attend school. Middle school and high school tuition was free. I just needed to work part-time during breaks to earn some living expenses. But university tuition was expensive. I've studied hard for these 3 years, all for the full tuition waiver reward during this joint college entrance exam. Joseph's family wouldn't pay for my college education, nor would they allow me to go to university. They feared that if I went to college and saw the world, I wouldn't be willing to marry Joseph anymore. So they're trying every possible means to keep me trapped in this backward, impoverished mountain region. In my previous life, after missing the joint college entrance exam, I returned to school to retrieve my cup for medical testing. Yet I couldn't find the cup anywhere. Accompanied by my homeroom teacher, I went to check the classroom surveillance footage, only to be told the cameras had been broken for over a week. The last footage from the surveillance camera showed Joseph bouncing a basketball in the classroom, which then ricocheted and smashed the camera. I wasn't without my suspicions about Joseph regarding these coincidences. It wasn't until he gave up his college entrance exams to search for me that my doubts were dispelled. Yet, who could have imagined it was all his own orchestrated performance designed to make me feel indebted to him for life? He knew he couldn't get into college, and he couldn't focus on studying either. Afraid that I might escape our social class by getting into a good university, he conspired with Michelle to ruin my future. 5. Michelle placed a freshly filled water cup on my desk. She gave me a timid smile, her eyes filled with cautious ingratiation. Evelyn, I mix half hot water with half cold water for you. It's just the right temperature, now you can drink it. My gaze remained fixed on the problem set as I gave a non-committal couldn't be bothered to look at her. She bit her lip, her eyes instantly reddening. Evelyn, did I do something wrong? You're being so distant with me. Michelle was well liked in class, and with her striking looks many people stood up for her. Class monitor, what's with the attitude? The school belle doesn't owe you anything. She even fetched water for you, and you're giving her the cold shoulder. Can't you even say thank you? Without looking up, I said thank you. My accusers fell silent, and even Michelle froze in shock. The school bell rang. Michelle could only return to her seat unwillingly. I glanced at my cup, then at the identical one on Michelle's desk. Michelle and Joseph were from the same village, but her family was slightly wealthier than his. Many of my belongings were hand-me-downs from Michelle after she finished using them. For this, I was always grateful, even though she loved to say playfully in front of crowds. The clothes on Evelyn were given by me. They were too loose on me, but they fit her just right. There were countless remarks like these. In elementary school, my classmates used to laugh at me, saying I was like a beggar who treasured Michelle's cast-offs. Later, in middle and high school, She developed a habit of buying everything in pairs then giving one to me. If I didn't want them, she'd give them to Grandma Josephine. I thought I had shaken off the label of a beggar only to be called a copycat instead. Every penny I earned from odd jobs I returned to Michelle. I don't want to owe her anything. I've always believed that no one is perfect, everyone has their flaws. In all matters judged by actions rather than intentions, for no one's actions are flawless. Whatever her intentions were, at least, she provided me with clothes to wear and a cup to use. Yet it wasn't until my dying breath that I learned the truth of my origins. I was actually her half-sister from the same father. All those malicious acts of hers, it turns out I hadn't been overthinking them after all. 6. From the small mirror I saw Michelle's venomous gaze fixed on my cup. I deliberately picked up the cup lid and twisted it open. Her pupils dilated slightly and the corners of her mouth twitched with excitement. The next moment, I tightened the lid again. Her pupils constricted, her jaw clenched, and her fingers involuntarily dug into her palms. For the entire class, I kept tormenting her nerves like this over and over. Her once clear eyes were now bloodshot by the end of class. Her body trembled uncontrollably. I found it somewhat amusing with such poor composure, she still dared to do wicked things. When the class bell rang, Michelle abruptly stood up. I instantly picked up the cup, my throat moving as I pretended to take a few sips of water. Only then did she sit back down, letting out a relieved sigh. I screwed the cap back on the cup and slumped over the desk, feigning rest. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her pulling Joseph outside. While they were away, I poured the water from the cup into an empty mineral water bottle and hid it in my school bag. The emptied cup was placed back on the table by me. When Michelle returned, she deliberately passed by me and picked up my cup. The lighter weight made her unable to contain her joy. "Evelyn, let me get you some more water." With that, she took my cup and ran out smiling. 7. During the next class, I pretended to clutch my stomach in pain while letting tears fall. In the mirror, Michelle couldn't help but curl her lips into a smile, exchanging a glance with Joseph in the back row. Seeing the opportune moment, I couldn't help but clutch my stomach and stand up to ask the English teacher for leave. "Teacher, my stomach suddenly hurts so much." The English teacher was my favorite teacher and also my homeroom teacher. In my previous life, he went out of his way to pull strings for my sake. Even in the end, when I missed the college entrance exam. He even went to Joseph's house to find Joseph's grandmother, saying he was willing to pay for me to repeat the school year. But Joseph's grandmother hit him on the head with a broom and chased him out. Not only that, Grandma Joseph even made a scene at the school, spreading rumors that the homeroom teacher had inappropriate intentions toward me. The homeroom teacher was suspended and even reported by parents for verbal abuse. Yet despite this, when Joseph took me south to work, the homeroom teacher still sent me messages of encouragement. "Evelyn, you may have missed the college entrance exam, but you haven't missed your entire life. You can still return to campus through self-study exams or other means in the future through your own efforts. Life is long, never give up on yourself." Now seeing me in such a disheveled state, drenched in sweat, and with unstoppable tears, my homeroom teacher immediately contacted the school nurse to take me away. Having experienced the pain of dehydration in my past life, acting it out this time around required no effort at all. Michelle and Joseph came to see me, and only when they saw me running back and forth to the bathroom with a pale face did they finally feel reassured enough to return to class. During the last evening self-study session, I asked my homeroom teacher for leave to be hospitalized at an outside medical facility. My homeroom teacher lamented in the classroom. "How could this happen? Evelyn actually got hospitalized at such a critical time. Tomorrow is the joint entrance exam. I must go check on her." After the homeroom teacher left, Michelle and Joseph were overjoyed. On her way back, Michelle even started humming a tune. I didn't attend the morning self-study session the next day. Seeing no one at my seat, Michelle felt a weight lift from her heart. Our exam halls were in different schools. Because I was ill, the homeroom teacher insisted on personally escorting me to the exam hall. I didn't return to school until after the exams were over. Michelle saw me and couldn't wait to come over, saying sadly, "Evelyn, what a pity. How could you have missed the exam?" I smiled. "It's okay, there's still the college entrance exam." She sighed and said deliberately with pride, "This joint exam involves recommendation for admission, not to mention full tuition waiver." As the class bell rang, she returned to her seat and found a note tucked under her cup. It was me who got up early in the morning and imitated Joseph's handwriting to write for Michelle's slow use. I poured all the water from that day's replaced mineral water bottle into Michelle's cup. She sipped from her cup, her lips curled into a sweet smile. 8. As Joseph walked past Michelle with a basketball in his arms, Michelle blushed and blinked at him with rosy cheeks. Joseph, puzzled, scratched the back of his head and smiled back. Michelle became even more convinced that the note had come from Joseph. Before a single class period had ended, Michelle had already finished drinking an entire cup of water. During class break, she had just stood up to find Joseph when she suddenly clutched her abdomen, collapsed to her knees, and began convulsing. Clutching her stomach, she scrambled up from the floor and ran toward the restroom. She didn't return for 2 full class periods. The homeroom teacher sent someone to look for her. They finally found her in the corridor outside the restroom. She was dehydrated and unconscious, just like me in my past life. Joseph frowned as he watched Michelle being carried out. He walked up to me and asked, "Evelyn, Michelle's condition looks just like yours back then, only much worse." His voice wasn't quiet, and many in the class heard it. "Yeah, class president, did you infect the school bell or something?" "Don't infect us. The college entrance exams are coming up soon. We can't afford to get sick. Evelyn, if you're sick, you should just drop out and go home. Don't hold everyone back. We all know you're an orphan. How poor can you possibly be?" Who knows if you've got some contagious disease you can't afford to treat. Maybe the school beauty got too close to you and caught whatever you have. Accusations and curses rose in waves around us. I looked at Joseph, but he showed not an ounce of pity for me. His mood visibly improved as the voices humiliating me grew louder and more vicious. Joseph always said he loved me, that I was the most important person in his life. Yet his love always puts me in awkward situations. Seeing the homeroom teacher walk in, at this moment the classmates immediately said, "Teacher Michelle's condition is exactly the same as Evelyn's back then. Evelyn must have infected her. We're all about to take the college entrance exams. What if she infects us? Make her take a leave of absence or we'll collectively call the Education Bureau to protest." Joseph took great pleasure in putting me in situations where everyone would despise me. And every time this happened, he would appear like a hero descending from the heavens, standing in front of me, shielding me. Yet all these storms were brought by him in the first place. I watched his performance with cold eyes. Sure enough, the next second he stood before me with his back turned. "You're talking nonsense. Evelyn is not an orphan. She has been adopted by my family. I won't allow you to spread such rumors. Evelyn doesn't have any illness last time. She just had food poisoning, and Michelle clearly has the same symptoms. It's food poisoning." Joseph turned to look at me gently. "Evelyn, as long as I'm here, no one will bully you." The classmates still wanted to speak, but the homeroom teacher forcefully slammed the book in her hand on the desk. "Do you have any proof? Do you have evidence that Evelyn infected Michelle? How dare you spread baseless accusations? Have all these years of education gone to waste?" The classroom instantly fell silent. Someone couldn't help but whisper, "But their symptoms are clearly the same." The homeroom teacher raised her voice. "I personally accompanied Michelle to the hospital that night. When she fell ill, she received 4 fluids and underwent various tests. Do you think I wouldn't know whether she is actually sick or not? I pulled out the medical report from that day. Everyone can take a good look at this after you're done reading. Those who were barking like dogs earlier better remember to apologize to me." After the classmates passed it around, they reluctantly shut their mouths. The test results ended up in Joseph's hands. It was clearly stated that I had no illness whatsoever. The homeroom teacher angrily retorted, "Evelyn just had pre-exam syndrome which caused stomach pain and the need to use the bathroom. How is that the same as Joe Ran's situation?" The classmates all fell silent. Joseph's smile vanished instantly after reading the list. He suddenly looked up, staring at me in disbelief. I met his gaze with cold indifference. He felt a chill run down his spine under my gaze. "Evelyn, you." I looked at him with disgust. "Joseph, get the hell away from me. You make me sick to my stomach." With that, I returned to my seat and started working on practice problems. I left Joseph to endure the scrutinizing gazes of our classmates and homeroom teacher. The homeroom teacher said unhappily, "Joseph, Evelyn is the pride of our entire school. Her success in the exams will inspire countless juniors to come. Can you please stop holding her back? I'm begging you as your teacher. Her test scores are 3 and a third times yours. How can you even face her?" Joseph turned deathly pale and staggered back to his seat. All day long his gaze haunted me like a ghost. When classmates asked him to visit Michelle at the hospital together, he refused to go. Joseph and I are different. I got into this high school through my own efforts while his family paid to get him admitted. Before he transferred to our school, everyone knew about my orphan background, but no one ever mocked or laughed at me. They even collectively raised funds for me and encouraged me to study hard. Since Joseph arrived, any boy who got close to me, he would go tell them that I was picked up by his grandmother. I was his child bride. I was meant to marry him someday. I've eaten the Joseph family's food, so I'm considered one of them. High school life was austere for everyone. Especially in key high schools, there's endless tutoring every day and piles of unfinished test papers. Under such intense, high-pressure conditions, when such gossip emerged, it practically swept through the entire grade. I became the laughingstock of everyone. Whenever people see me, they tease Joseph. "Joseph, your child bride is here." The jeers made me uncomfortable, my fragile self-esteem being ground underfoot. Joseph, however, was quite pleased with it, especially with Michelle adding fuel to the fire. Everyone's impression of me became very poor. They said I was jealous of Michelle's beauty, so I bullied her. The label of copycat haunted my youth like an inescapable nightmare, following me like a shadow. Escaping these mountains and getting out of this county town became my only hope for survival throughout high school. At 11, when school let out in the afternoon, Joseph came looking for me using his usual tactics. To be fair, Joseph was quite good looking. He knows his strengths and excels at playing the victim in front of me. Every time before I could even feel sorry for him, another girl stood up for her. "Evelyn, Grandma made dinner and said she's waiting for you to come home to eat." I packed my books into my school bag. "I'm not going back, Joseph. I won't be going back ever again." A flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "Exactly what it says." I handed him a form stamped with the official seal of the relevant department. It clearly stated the termination of the adoption relationship. "Joseph, I have no connection with your Joseph family anymore, and I have nothing to do with you either. If you keep spreading nonsense about me being your child bride and saying I'll marry you someday, I'll sue your grandmother for child trafficking and unlawful confinement." The Joseph family stared at the words on the watch, their lips trembling. "Evelyn, how could you do this? My grandmother raised you all these years. How could you be so ungrateful? And now you're slandering her like this." More and more classmates gathered around to watch the commotion. School lets out for a day and a half every Friday. So many students from other classes come to ours to wait for their friends. Now both inside and outside the classroom, crowds have gathered to watch the commotion. Joseph's voice was loud, and everyone heard it. Once again, voices rose up to condemn me. Joseph wasn't good at academics, but he was quite skilled at using subtle innuendos. He always positioned people on the moral high ground to criticize them, then placed himself in the most innocent position. I sneered, your grandmother only took me in to save on your future bride price when you grew up. I came to your house and started learning to cook on a stool at the age of 4. I didn't even have decent clothes to wear in the dead of winter. My feet turned blue from the cold while you could warm yourself by the fire. When it was time for school, you got to go while I had to stay home cutting pigweed and feeding chickens. The village party secretary came several times saying compulsory education meant I should attend school, but your grandmother wouldn't even register me for a household registration, afraid I might run away. The village party secretary finally said your grandmother had no legal guardianship over me, and they were going to send me to an orphanage. Your grandmother was afraid I'd run away, so she finally registered my household registration. Only when the police came to our door was I able to attend school. I was only 16 years old in my first year of high school. Flushed with anger, Joseph suddenly glared at me fiercely and shouted, "Shut up," I sneered, completely unafraid, though my eyes grew increasingly red as I spoke. "Why shouldn't I say it? Didn't you accuse me of being ungrateful? Didn't you say your grandmother raised me? When I was just 14, your grandmother locked you in my room in the middle of the night. She wanted you to force yourself on me to take my body, so I couldn't escape, so I'd have no choice but to marry you. If I hadn't stabbed myself with scissors and scared you, you and your grandmother would have ruined me long ago. You just think that since this involves my reputation, and as a girl I care about face, I'd be too ashamed to speak up. That's why you've been acting so brazenly. Isn't it? Joseph, I don't care about face anymore. I just want to do well in the college entrance exams and live a good life. You say your grandmother raised me, but have I ever spent a single dollar of your family's money all these years? My tuition and living expenses are fully covered by scholarships. I spend all my free time working part-time jobs, and when I return to your house I have to do all the chores. Even your grandmother takes my money. What kindness or obligation does your family owe me? What loyalty?" I pressed forward step by step, my words ringing with conviction. The previously quiet classroom instantly erupted with curses directed at Joseph. "Have you no shame, Joseph, after all the things you've been saying outside? You've made everyone think you and the class president were an item when it was just your own wishful thinking. This just human trafficking. The class monitor's grades are so good, yet Joseph doesn't even look at what kind of toad he is. The class monitor has it worse than child laborers." A barrage of curses rained down on Joseph's face. After all, he was just a high school senior. At that age when reputation and pride mean everything, when self-esteem runs high. He kicked over the nearby desk with a furious roar, shoving through the crowd as he stormed out. The desk belonged to the class sports committee representative. The class sports committee member grabbed Joseph by the collar. "Are you insane, Joseph, throwing a tantrum and kicking my desk? What the hell is wrong with you? Don't you have your own desk?" Joseph slammed his fist into the sports committee member's face. "Let go of me, you bastard." The two started brawling, inevitably involving nearby classmates in the scuffle. The male classmates who had always disliked Joseph joined the fray one after another. It quickly escalated from a fight between two people to a group brawl. Joseph's pained cries reached my ears, but I acted as if I hadn't heard, leisurely packing my belongings. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and left through the back door, only to run into the homeroom teacher standing at the entrance. He looked at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. I don't know how long I listened. I opened my mouth, then lowered my gaze. Through 2 lifetimes, I've always felt ashamed before this mentor of mine. He placed great expectations on me and spared no effort to help me these past 3 years. 9 years of compulsory education only waived my tuition fees. There were still living expenses and textbook fees at school, especially the photocopying fees for printed exam papers at our prestigious high school, which were a significant financial burden for me. In my previous life, I thought it was because my homeroom teacher had repeatedly petitioned the principal that my living expenses, textbook fees, and photocopying fees were waived. It wasn't until many years later, when I returned home and met retired teachers from the school, that I learned the truth. At first, the principal only agreed to waive my living expenses. All other fees were secretly covered by my homeroom teacher. Not only that, seeing that I spent my 1 day off each week doing odd jobs physically demanding manual labor, he found out and invited me to tutor his elementary school son at his home for payment. It's laughable to say, but I didn't understand this matter until I grew up. The homeroom teacher had been teaching for years, couldn't he? He handled teaching an elementary school child. He was clearly sparing no effort to help me. Yet he still cared for my fragile, youthful pride. Now, having lived 2 lives, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow when meeting his gaze. He reached out and patted my shoulder. "Evelyn, a golden phoenix can rise from the mountains, and the phoenix tree grows in the valley. You will surely live the life you desire." His eyes were slightly red, and my gaze swept over the classmates nearby. Their eyes were either filled with shame or guilt, yet not a single one held mockery. 12 that night, I was sleeping soundly in the dormitory. The dorm supervisor asked me to come down and take the phone call. On the other end of the phone was Joseph's voice, trembling with grievance. "Evelyn, don't hang up. I have something to tell you. You already know, don't you? Michelle drugged you, but that has nothing to do with me. Evelyn, you can't blame me for this." I suppressed my disgust. "Are accomplices not guilty too?" His voice choked up. "Evelyn, I was just afraid you'd leave me. I was scared that once you got into a good university and met new people, you'd abandon me. I truly can't live without you. I let out a cold laugh. Joseph, I was never with you in the first place. Could you stop being so delusional? He gasped sharply. You're still angry with me, aren't you? And about the college entrance exams, Evelyn, the top 10 students will have their tuition sponsored too. Even if no one sponsors you, I'll earn the money to put you through school myself. Evelyn, I'll make you see my determination to make it up to you. Without waiting for his response, I hung up the phone. 13 after Michelle returned to school, she cornered Joseph during break. You didn't come visit me at the hospital these past few days. Joseph glanced at me and spoke to her impatiently, as if trying to distance himself. Can you just stay away from me? Michelle's eyes instantly reddened. What do you mean if I hadn't drunk the water you gave me, I wouldn't have gotten sick? Joseph shoved her away abruptly. Are you out of your mind? Who said I fetched water for you? He looked at me pleadingly. Evelyn, I swear I never fetched water for her. I chuckled and ignored her. Michelle snapped back to reality, strode over to me in a few steps and gripped my wrist tightly. It was you, wasn't it? I slapped her hand away with all my strength. I don't understand what you're saying. Michelle said angrily, are you getting back at me? Why would I get back at you? What did you do to make me want revenge? How puzzling. Michelle raised an eyebrow and glanced at Joseph, who averted his gaze. Michelle let out a cold laugh. Evelyn, aren't you afraid I'll call the police? Your life would be ruined. I smiled, then go check the surveillance footage. Joseph was so guilty, he didn't even dare look at me and went straight out the back door. Only Michelle and I remained in the classroom. Michelle crossed her arms, looking down at me with an air of superiority. Who would be thought, Evelyn, all these years you've played the innocent, so, well, turns out holding grudges is your true nature. But no matter how much you try to get back at me, what's the point? You still missed the joint entrance exam. The top spot is mine, the school as only recommendation quota is mine, the 4-year full tuition waiver is mine too. I actually don't need the college entrance exam rewards at all, but I know it's your lifeline. That's precisely why I want to give it to you. Just wait to rot in this backwater town for the rest of your life. I let out a careless laugh. Oh really, we'll see about that. Michelle tilted her head back and let out a scornful laugh. Keep pretending you're fine. The joint exam results were announced during evening self-study. The homeroom teacher placed the printed score sheet on the lectern. He smiled as he held the insulated cup. Come up and take a look, everyone. Michelle sat smugly in her seat, staring at me motionlessly with eyes full of provocation. I took a sip of water and didn't move either. Let the other students crowd around the podium to check the score sheet. Michelle waited for her classmates to exclaim her name in surprise. But what came instead was, the gap between first and second place is huge, over 100 points difference, my God. Michelle couldn't suppress the smile at the corners of her mouth. But the next second, the class president is amazing, the school beauty isn't even in the same league. Michelle stood up with a flushed face. What are you saying? This can't be true. She frantically pushed past her classmates, rushed to the podium, grabbed the score sheet, and stared at it wide-eyed, reading it over and over again. No matter how hard she hit her head or how many times she closed and opened her eyes, the name she kept seeing was still Evelyn. Her hands trembled as she looked at me with a broken expression, her eyes bloodshot. She rushed up to me and raised her hand to strike. You lied to me, Evelyn, you lied to me. I caught her wrist and whispered expressionlessly in her ear. I didn't retaliate against you on your exam day. Do you know why? Because I possess the capability to utterly crush you. To make you understand the insurmountable gap between us. Michelle, when you're outmatched, you must accept defeat. I shook off her hand, and she collapsed to the ground, crying hysterically. Just like me in my past life. In my previous life, when I woke up after missing the joint exam, my world collapsed, and everything seemed shrouded in darkness. Fortunately, there was still the college entrance exam. After missing the college entrance exam, I just wanted to die. Later, Joseph and I went south to work, and I kept earning money to take self-study exams. The joint exam questions and college entrance exam questions I missed that year. For many years thereafter, I could recite it backwards and forwards, because that was the life I missed. 14 When Joseph came back from sports practice and learned I ranked first in the joint exam, he froze for a few seconds before falling silent. He didn't have an emotional breakdown like Michelle screaming and shouting. But I was greeted by an unexpected visitor. Michelle's father in the principal's office. The man smiled at me. He opened a large supermarket in the city with his hometown just a few steps away from Joseph's house. I called him Uncle Robert for 18 years. He watched me being abused by Joseph's family, even nearly becoming an undocumented person, yet never showed me an ounce of pity. From the villagers' gossip, I pieced together a picture of Robert's ex-wife, my mother. She died from massive hemorrhaging during a difficult childbirth. Both mother and child gone. Less than half a month after her death, Robert brought home a heavily pregnant woman on the verge of giving birth. That person is Michelle's mother. After the principal left, only Robert and I remained in the office. He looked at me with a smile, his face full of kindness. You've grown up truly outstanding. You're the first child from our village to get into a prestigious university, truly remarkable. He looked at me with increasing satisfaction. Not as if gazing at his daughter, but rather at his own prestige, his medal of honor. I replied coolly, Uncle Robert, is there something you need? He let out a sigh, his eyes instantly reddening. Evelyn, actually, I am your father. I couldn't acknowledge you before because of your Aunt Paula. Now that you're grown up and about to go to college, even if she divorces Dad, he'll still acknowledge you. I don't believe it, having lived 2 lives, acting was now second nature to me. Robert took me to the hospital for a DNA test. When the results came out, I threw myself into his arms and burst into tears. Dad, you don't know how much I wished you were my father when I was little and saw how much you doted on Michelle. I never thought you really were my dad. Robert took me back to his small countryside villa. When Michelle saw me, she couldn't contain her rage any longer and lunged at me, shoving me violently. I let myself fall to the ground, silent tears streaming down. Robert was furious and slapped Michelle across the face. She asked your sister, "What are you doing? Get back to your room." Michelle left in tears while Aunt Paula, nearby, nearly gritted her teeth to dust. With Robert's help, I successfully transferred my household registration out of the Joseph family. Grandma Joseph had stubbornly refused to agree at first. Robert opened a supermarket and hired some local thugs to protect the store. Joseph was ambushed several times on his way home, beaten until his face was bruised and swollen. The worst beating broke his leg. Joseph's grandmother wailed and pleaded, finally handing over my household registration booklet. I successfully transferred my household registration out of Joseph's family. What was as difficult as climbing to the heavens for me was a piece of cake for Robert. Set a thief to catch a thief. After securing early admission, I no longer needed to attend school. I stayed at home every day, cooking meals and simmering soups for Robert, playing the role of a dutiful daughter to perfection. These were all things Michelle had never done in her daily life. Michelle was very spoiled, and with her as a contrast, the slightest kindness from me would be magnified in Robert's eyes. Meanwhile, Michelle grew increasingly distraught each day as she listened to Robert's praises about me. She couldn't bear to see me being attentive to Robert, nor could she stand Robert showing me any favor. She couldn't tolerate seeing our father-daughter affection. She would make scenes, cry, smash plates and bowls. This led to Robert scolding her and, in severe cases, even resorting to physical violence. And so, every day in the Sioux household fell into an endless cycle. Under this emotional pressure, Michelle simply couldn't focus on studying. On the day of the college entrance exams, I showed up right on time. She glared at me angrily. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, taking the exam again to show you that losing to me wasn't just a coincidence. I looked into her eyes. But reality, I continued, "You're just my defeated opponent. Every time you'll lose to me, that's your fate. Michelle, you should accept your fate." Her eyes burned with anger and hatred, but beneath it all lay fear and terror. I stepped into the examination hall, while she remained frozen in place. I messed with her head. When the college entrance exam results came out, Michelle scored over 200 points, less than me, barely scraping into a second-tier university. Robert looked somewhat disdainful. "Couldn't even get into a top-tier university. I've invested so much in you over the years. The tutoring fees alone could be bought an apartment in the city. Useless waste." Michelle broke down in uncontrollable sobs. I brought out the soup I had prepared. "Dad, don't be angry. Have some soup first. You're not in good health. You must take care of yourself." Aunt Paula was so furious she knocked over my soup and came at me. Robert retaliated with a sharp slap. The house was in complete chaos. I packed my bags at night, deliberately making as much noise as possible. True to form, Robert came out to see me, demanding to know what I was doing. I whispered through tears, "I've already lost Mom, and now you're all I have left. Though I truly want to live with you, Dad. I don't want to disrupt your life. I've found a part-time job at an educational institution in Beijing. I'll call you often to check on you when I have time." Robert wiped his tears with the back of his hand and handed me a bank card. "There's $150,000 in this card. Use it for now, and let me know if it's not enough." I politely exchanged pleasantries for a while before accepting it. During my college years, my outstanding academic performance gave Robert plenty of face among his relatives back in the countryside. With me as a comparison, Michelle became the unruly one. Robert and Michelle's mother quarreled frequently. What kind of feelings could a man who cheated on his wife and abandoned his family possibly have? Robert has no idea how many women he's got on the side. I played the sweet talker with a ruthless heart to the fullest, coaxing Robert into funding my master's degree, PhD, and eventually my study abroad. For someone like Robert, uneducated but obsessed with saving face, the allure of academic credentials is unusually strong. After returning from studying abroad, I started working at Robert's supermarket. In 2 years, I successfully transferred all of Robert's assets, turning the supermarket into an empty shell. And then I left this place for good. My household registration had already been transferred with my university enrollment long ago. Michelle's mother divorced Robert, and he nearly went insane. Years of alcohol and debauchery had drained his health. Terminally ill, he made countless calls to me. I reluctantly answered his call just before changing my SIM card. He asked me for medical expenses, begging me to save him. I just smiled and said, "Uncle Robert, my mother has been dead for 18 years. You've lived 18 years too long. Hurry up and join her. You won't get a single cent from me while you're alive, but after you die, I'll pay whatever's needed for your funeral arrangements." Before he could curse me, I hung up the phone. He didn't survive the winter. On the day he died, I stepped back into the city I had once loathed so deeply. At Robert's funeral, I wrote my mother's name. The hired opera singers, drummers, and scripture chanters were all arranged for my mother. I also had my mother's grave rebuilt. The arriving guests were all stunned, yet none dared to say a word. The opera performance on stage was at its climax, and the guests at the banquet tables were enjoying their meals heartily. Michelle suddenly rushed in front of me, picked up a knife, and started stabbing toward me. It was Joseph who pushed me away. The two of them wrestled together, and Michelle slashed off Joseph's hand with a knife. Evelyn Michelle is so good to you even though she's South perpetually second place. She's willing to give up her break time to let you practice problems. Before Joseph was taken away by the ambulance, he smiled at me. Evelyn, I'm glad you're okay. I smirked sarcastically. Another scheme planned by you, and Michelle, how you really went all out this time, Joseph. What will you do if this hand can't be reattached? His face instantly turned deathly pale, his lips parting painfully, as if to speak before finally pressing together in silent defeat.
Evelyn, I'm sorry.
Don't, it disgusts me. After the funeral, I buried Robert far away. Back when he buried my mother, there wasn't even a tombstone, just a small mound of earth. Now I'm treating him the same way. I lied to him. After death, I couldn't bring myself to spend money on him either. After all, I've been dirt poor my whole life. Surely Uncle Robert would understand me. The end.